I think we can begin now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in large numbers. We are going to begin our plenary session 3 of day 2 of Future Human Digital Frontiers in Posthumanist Discourse, a 2-day virtual international conference organized by All India Forum for English Students, Scholars, and Trainers, also known as AIFEST. We are very grateful for the presence of Dr. Jai Singh over here within us, who will be delivering his talk now. Let me just briefly introduce Sir. Dr. Jai Singh, Associate Professor in English at this English and Foreign Languages University, EFLU, Hyderabad, had research stay at Central European University, Hungary for 1 month under the Indo-Hungarian Educational Exchange Program, funded by Balasi Institute, Hungarian Scholarship Board Office, and UGC India, and research stay at University of Turku, Finland for 3 months under Indo-Finnish Faculty Exchange Program, funded by UGC India and CIMO Finland in 2014. He primarily works in the fields of Indology, Orientalism, Gender Studies, Digital Humanities, and Postmodernism. He is editor of the journals, quote unquote, Literary Miscellany, Language Form, Literaria International Journal of Communication. He is also a part of editorial board of the Contour, Board the Literati, a peer-reviewed journal of language and literature. He is also part of review board of the Post-Colonial Text, ICIK, Asian Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences. He has his publications in Cambridge Scholars and Routledge published books and in the Scopus listed journals of international repute. He is also a member of research panel of Yonphula Centenary College, Royal University of Bhutan since 2020. We heartily welcome you, sir. Over to you. You may please start your session now. Please unmute, sir.
Thank you, Subhranshu, and thanks to all the participants and our members of organization for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with all of you.
Sir, you're not audible.
I think I'm audible to you.
The sound is a little low, sir. If you can.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. It's.
I think gradually it will improve.
Sir, if you could just take your microphone near your mouth, then it will be. I think we'll be able to hear you.
Okay. I think now it is okay.
Yes, sir.
It's
now
better, sir. It's better.
Better. Yeah.
So, dear friends, today I am going to discuss with you digital turn to the understanding of discourses, a study of text as installation. Now, when we talk about text as installation, I'm using the language of computer, where we install one kind of software in a computer and the computer starts working in that way. And we change the software, we uninstall the one software and install another one, so the computer starts working in a different way. Similarly, human brain is also a kind of supercomputer. And all the discourses that we experience, that we have, that we undergo, that we imbibe, they are a kind of installation. The moment a different kind of software is installed, but there is one thing, in a computer you can completely change the software, that is not possible in case of human beings. But once the softwares are installed, the human beings behave in a particular manner. We are going to discuss how different kind of discourses can be installed. This text is a part of discourse, so they can be installed, and how they influence the functioning of our thinking and our brain, our mind, and how the advent of digital technologies are interfering with the discourses and human mind. So, dear friends, when we talk about text as installation, we must talk about the brain as a machine on which the text is to be installed. However, accepting simultaneously that brain itself is a text generating machine, and a machine on which text, or rather numerous texts, are installed. So the first thing about the brain that we have to accept is the brain itself is a text generating machine it is, and a machine on which text or rather numerous texts are installed. And all these three functions, they have a very complex interaction with each other. When we look into the history of brains understanding itself, though it is a thinking machine and all cognition happens in the brain, however, it located itself wrongly. You know, initially people used to believe that we think from the heart, the brain lies here. The thinking process happens here. Actually, it happens here. This part could not locate itself, so initially this part located itself here. Later on, in the 5th century, 4th century and 5th century, they could, for 4th century BC and 5th century BC, the brain of somebody could locate itself correctly. The credit goes to the cognitive capabilities of two brains, that is Aclemion and of Croton. He was born in 5th century BC, and he told that this is the brain. And Hippocrates, 4th century BC, who recognized the brain as a seat of intelligence. However, despite this early start, it took more than 2 millennia to become common knowledge that it is in the brain that intelligence and memory resides. For many centuries, it was believed that intelligence resides in the heart. Even today, we say that something that was memorized was learned by heart. As I already told you, to understand text and installation, we should accept that brain is a machine. And here we can draw a parallel between understanding of the brain and understanding of a computer. The parallel study has its own limitations because even though no one can keep, and therefore it is fair to say that humans understand the computers because human beings have designed computers. So that is why we can say that humans understand computers. Humans' understanding of computer does not correspond to detailed knowledge on the part of any individual or any group of the voltage and current of each single transmitter. So there are two ways. One, we can understand the hardware of the brain, that is neurons, how much power is there, all that. And in the computer also, there is a network motherboard. However, humans understand the general principles used to design a computer, the way each part is connected with other, the behavior of each different part, and how these parts working together perform the task they were designed to perform. With the brain, things are much more complex, even though there are general principles governing the brain's organization. Most of them are not yet well understood. However, we know enough to believe that brain's structure and organization result from combination of genetic encoding and brain's plasticity. These are the two important things: genetic encoding and brain's plasticity. Brain's plasticity means it can mold itself depending on the requirement. The human brain is plastic, that is able to change not only during its development, but throughout a person's life. Plasticity is what gives a normal brain the ability to learn and to modify its behavior as a new experiences to occur. Here I will like to use computer's language. We have a computer, but the computer does not have an inbuilt ability to update itself. Anyway, your computers may be updating, but that update is released by the Windows or whatever. But human brain has inbuilt capacity to update itself. That is the plasticity. Though plasticity is strongest during childhood, it remains a fundamental and significant property of the brain throughout a person's life. The brain's plasticity comes into play every time we see or hear something new, every time we make a new memory, and every time we think. Brain's plasticity comes into action. Even though we don't have a complete understanding of the processes that create memories, there is significant evidence that long-term memories are stored in the connection pattern of the brain. Short-term memories are likely to be related to specific patterns of activities in the brain. But those patterns are also related to changes, perhaps short-lived changes in connectivity patterns, which means that brain's plasticity is active every second of our life. It is a self-conscious process that it has the concept of itself and that it fears its own death. We tend to view consciousness in this sense as a thing reserved for humans, even though we cannot pinpoint exactly what it is and where it comes from. Thousands of brilliant thinkers have tackled this problem, but the solution still remains elusive. It is so because everyone asked to define the meaning of the word mind more exactly, he or she will soon recognize the concept is very simple. The most commonly accepted definition of mind is means brain is the hardware part and mind is the software part. So what is mind? Mind is an emergent property of brain's behavior that provides humans with a set of cognitive faculties which include intelligence, consciousness, free will, reasoning, memory, and emotions. Some kind of text encoded in the genetic structure which manifests in the production of various hormones, which in turn controls certain features and behaviors, is available to all living organisms, including human beings. So the hardware part is uh, dependent on the genes. However, human beings are endowed with two more special features. One is a long-term memory and second is the short-term one is a long-term memory and second is the invention of language, with the help of which they could translate their experiences and knowledge systems into language and can store them first in their brain, which were transmitted to coming generations in the form of oral discourses and written text. Once the memories are transferred to a written text, it becomes an extension of mind which serves as a link to connect brains, not one brain, brains in temporal and spatial dimension, in horizontal and vertical dimension, in the same generation and in the coming generation. Now, suppose we want to read Shakespeare, we can buy his Hamlet. How Shakespeare's plays are available to us? Because they are present in the written form. So the memory is delegated to the written text. And the written text, when we read it, it is installed on our mind. In this way, the brain, the external world of nature, and the discourses produced and stored by human beings are all text, or in the language of computer science, softwares, which are connected with each other and installed on the individual brain and collective brain that comes into existence due to this complex networking. As a result of this complex networking, various discourses came into existence and new understandings of natural world emerged that led to the advent of new technologies, and these technologies led to evolution of mind and functioning of brain that we will discuss a little later. Scholars became aware of interface between technology and human consciousness quite early. For instance, Samuel Butler in his novel Reborn, which was published in 1872, says, man's very soul is due to the machines. It is a machine-made thing. He thinks as he thinks and feels as he feels through the works that machines have wrought upon him, and existence is quite as much a sine qua non for this as his for theirs. Those thrive best who use machinery wherever its use is possible with profit. But this is the art of the machines. They serve that they may rule. They bear no malice towards man for destroying a whole race of them, provided the creatures of better, he creates a better instead. On the contrary, they reward him liberally for having hastened their development. It is for neglecting them that he incurs their wrath, or for using inferior machines, or for not making sufficient exertions to invent new ones, for destroying them without replacing them. This is what Samuel Butler says in his novel, Revolt. Samuel Butler firmly believed that human beings use machines, which in turn also interact with and use human brain. Around this time, scholars seriously started thinking that art and literature are not products of some divine inspiration. Rather, they are materialistic productions like any other materialistic production. Hugo Musterberg established psychology lab at Harvard in 1890 and makes formative moment in the understanding of literature, not as a divinely inspired product, but as a product of human consciousness. And he also coined the term psychotechnology. It's a very important term that deals with, that psychology is a technology. To control psychology is a technology. And after them, Deleuze and Guattari, they wrote very famous two books, Anti-Oedipus and Capitalism and Schizophrenia. They came up with the idea that human beings, our text, discourse, whatever I'm speaking, whatever you are listening, you, me, this computer, everything is a machine. The society is a machine, machines are machines, and all these machines, the text, the reader, the writer, discourses, the language, they are all plugged into each other, and it's a very complex network of machines. Each part works independently its own way, as well as works in connection with others. Once they are plugged into each other, they do a specific task after connecting or on the basis of that connection, but simultaneously they have their own task as well. Like, the novel, as a novel has its own function, but the novel as a social production has one function. The novel as an economic production has another function. So when you plug the novel in the economy, it has a different function. When you plug the novel in the society, it has a different function. And then there is a socio-economic function when novel, society, and economics, they are plugged together, then there is another function. So they work together as well as they work independently. Now, we are living in the age of digital technologies. And we have digital texts. You can talk about PDFs. You can talk about interactive text. You can talk about Facebook. You can talk about online video games, Netflix. So these are cloud computing. They are all digital text. So digital text functions by a software package that reacts to the actions of the user by executing certain modules of code, thereby modifying the state of the computer. Just as the behavior of the computer alters the state of mind of the user, we have to understand how digital world alters the brain. We can refer to how even the use of language also alters the brain. Now, suppose you are playing the video game. Do you think the playing video game interacts with the brain, not the mind, brain, and it brings out some changes in the brain. Yes, of course. And to understand it, I will like to use the analogy how the use of language alters the brain. Now, how it alters the brain. In this regard, I will use the quotation from T. Deacon. What T. Deacon says, the ability to use language symbolically and phylogenetically affected the human brain, not in a direct cause and effect manner, but indirectly through its effect on human behavior and on the changes that human behavior brings about in the environment. Even though the ability to use language has a symbolic system, even though the ability to use language as a symbolic system does not bring out genetic changes in the nature of the human brain. The changes in the environmental conditions brought about by human symbolic responses to the environment can, in the long run, bias natural selection and alter the selection of cognitive predispositions that will be favored in the future. Here, I would like to give you just one example. For example, right now, we are destroying the natural environment which is required for the survival of human beings. And why we are destroying it, we can't stop it destroying, because our discourses want us to make more money. Our discourses, the present society wants to use maximum resources. This is what is the progress. And we cannot go back to the old days when we used to live in the forest and there existed a perfect metabolism between human beings and nature. That is impossible. We can give a lecture on saving the environment, sitting in an AC room and destroying the environment at the same time. We can't help it. Simultaneously, we are generating a new environment which is not suitable for human beings in long run, but which is quite suitable for artificial intelligence machines. Perhaps we may lead to the creation of a new world which is not suitable for human beings, but suitable for the artificial intelligence and robots and all that, because they don't need oxygen, they don't need that much water as we require. So in long run, we may face the serious problems regarding selection, natural selection, means survival of the fittest thing. Just like the language affects our brain, the intervention of digital technologies also affects our brain. In this regard, Marioni Wolf says, the generative capacity of reading parallels, the fundamental plasticity in the circuit wiring of our brains, both permit us to go beyond the particulars of the given. The rich associations, interferences, and insights emerging from this capacity allow and indeed invite us to reach beyond the specific content of what we read to form new thoughts. In this sense, reading both reflects and reenacts the brain's capacity for cognitive breakthrough. When human brain is faced with new challenges posed by the interactive but non-living giant of artificial intelligence, it readjusts itself. As Mariani Wolf says, our brain goes about rewiring us in a much more ingenious way. Faced with something new to learn, the human brain not only rearranges its original part, that is the structures and neurons responsible for essential functions such as vision and hearing, but it is able to refit some of its existing neuronal groups in those same areas to accomplish the particular needs of new function. This is what Marianne is going to say. Now, when we talk about text as an installation, and we have already reached the age of cybertext. Suppose we put on a VR gadget and we are walking on a plain floor, but in the video which is played in the VR gadget, there is some part we are walking on a road and some part is broken. Outside the floor is plain. It's not a road. It is 100% safe. But when we walk after putting the VR gadget, and in the VR gadget's video, there is a broken road, we jump to cross that. Our brain forgets that, forgets the actual reality it has perceived a few minutes back, and it instructs us to jump. So this is how the text can be directly installed. In cybertext theory, the elementary idea is to see a text or a work of art as a concrete and not metaphorical machine for production and consumption of science, consisting of the medium, the operator, and the strings of science. The last are divided into textones, the strings of science as they are in the text, and scriptones, strings of science as they appear to the reader user. The mechanism by which scriptones are generated or revealed from textones is called a transversal function, which is described as the combination of 7 variables: dynamic, determinability, transience, perspective, links, access, and the user function. These are the 7 variables when we talk about text as installation. I repeat these 7 variables: dynamics, determinability, transience, perspective, links, access, and user function, and their possible values. The combinatory approach gives us a heuristic map in 576 different media positions into which every text could be situated based on how its medium functions, but independently of what that medium is. In this regard, I will like to quote Ashrath's typology of textual combination almost in full to understand cyberpolitics. The following variables allow us to describe any text according to their mode of transversal. I will discuss with you the 7 7 variables. First is dynamics. In a static text, the scriptones are constant, whereas in a dynamic text, the contents of scriptones may change while the number of textones remains fixed. Intratextonic dynamics, or IDT, or the number and content of textones may vary as well. Determinability concerns the stability of the transversal function. A text is determinate if the adjacent scriptone of every scriptone are always the same, and indeterminate if not. Transiency, if the mere passing of the user's time causes scriptone to appear, the text is transient if not intransient. Perspective, if the text requires the user to play a strategic role as a character in the world described by the text, then the text perspective is personal. If not, it is impersonal. So, suppose you are the user of the text. You are playing a video game or you are reading a book. If you take up the role as a character, then it is personal, otherwise it is impersonal. Or you look at the text from personal point of view, it is personal perspective, otherwise impersonal. Access. If all scriptons of the text are readily available to the user at all times, then the text is random access, typically the codex. If not, then access is controlled. If everything is to you get an access to everything, it is random access, otherwise it is controlled. And sometimes this access may not be denied by the people in power. It may be denied by the reader himself. I just give you one example. I think you might have read Ode to Autumn by T.S. Eliot, by John Keats. And you might be thinking that John Keats is a romantic. I think almost everybody thinks that John Keats was a romantic. Because the access is controlled. The class teacher, when you were in 7th, 8th, 10th class, told you John Keats is a romantic poet. You reach the graduation, and every teacher told you that he is a romantic poet. You reach post-graduation, again it remains same. So the access is controlled. And you don't have access to all the literature that tries to prove that he is not a romantic poet. So that is a controlled access. Otherwise, you have an access. You go to library, you sit there, you will find the books. But you will not get the marks in the exams. If you write that, then it means the access is controlled. Linking. A text may be organized by explicit links for the user to follow conditional links that can only be followed if certain conditions are met or none of them. Means whether we are able to link the text with other links or not. Basically, some of these terms are applied in the very implicitly applied in the video games, but they can be used in the understanding of a written text as well. So here linking means, a text may be organized by explicit links for the user to follow. Means we link, like, I will repeat the same, go back to same thing. John Keats Ode to Autumn. Now, you link Ode to Autumn with the history of England. The poem was written in 1870, 2 years before, maybe in 1815 or 16. Corn Law was passed in England, and under that there was one clause. If somebody was found gleaning, the person will be arrested by the police. And at a time when gleaning is a crime in England, John Keats glorifies the gleaning. Now you link. So if these links are available to us or not available. Last is the user function. User function basically applies to video games. Besides the interpretive function of the users, which is present in all text, the use of some text may be described in terms of additional functions, the explorative function in which the user must decide which path to take, and the configurative function in which scriptons are in part chosen and created by the user if textons or the transversal function can be permanently added to the text. The user function, that is textonic. So user function is textonic if the transversal function is added to the text permanently. If all the decisions a reader makes about the text concern its meaning, then there is only one user function, here called interpretation. So if all the decision a reader makes about a text concern its meaning, in that case it is interpretation. In our age, literature has entered the electronic landscape. Even if such a landscape suggests images of electronic video games or machine-readable inks swooning under a science fiction lexicon. The fact is that the electronic world is a world substantially of writing, though this writing often seems eclipsed by the mode of transmission, that is email, chat room, the World Wide Web, and flash as primary instances. It is not unlike all previous writings, which has also been eclipsed by modes of transmission, the book, the stone, tablet, and the scroll. Anyway, when we talk about the electronic world, we forget that even in the electronic world, still, most of the work is done by human beings, and first it is a written thing. We write in words, but also in the grammar and the politics of the code, that is HTML, JavaScript, and many more. Electronic writing, like previous instances of writing, equally engages the double mission of writing. That is, writing is about a subject, but it is also about the medium through which it is transmitted. That is transmission. Transmission then suggests both the circulation of the text and the cross purposes. That is, trans is equal to cross or across, plus mission is equal to purpose or intention of the inscription. These words have equal significance in the electronic realm. Bernstein's allusion to Minareti's great futuristic declaration gestures toward the advancement of writing's physicality. Electronic text provides the subsequent step, projecting writing into charged spaces where words themselves extend beyond sequentiality from the context of distext pieces or the fragments of the text. So, therefore, we look at online hypertext. Here we investigate link mode hypertext, that is generic and net disseminated, as opposed to the proprietary closed hypertext or other hypertext systems. Importantly, electronic poetics are not tied into the linearity of the pages. This is not an end to the linearity, but an emergence of multiple linearities. In short, emergence of cyber poetics. So with these words, I would like to end my talk. So I again express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed a very nice talk on the topic Digital Turn to the Understanding of Discourses, a study of text as installation. I'm sure our participants have been benefited. I now open the session for question and answers. Participants, if you have to ask something, please write in the chat box, and sir will be addressing those questions. We can do that in the next 5 to 10 minutes and then wind up the session. Any suggestions or doubts or queries, you can please ask. Yes, ma'am, just a minute. Okay.
I think the best way is if they write it in the chat box.
Yeah, one of the chairs who was presenting paper, she actually wants to ask something. Ma'am, can you speak now? Is it unmuted?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, good afternoon. That was a wonderful, insightful talk. I had a doubt because discourse is all about the course of writing and the course of life in literature. Do you think that even the writers or the production, as you refer to the consumerism and the production of writing exactly is under a pressure that we have to significantly write about the emerging technologies? So do you think that the answer or the panacea for this kind of a writing where digital technologies are made into our life is only to write next about sustainability, so that we can draw a line between what is to be and to what levels we can expect this kind of an encroach into our lives?
See, one thing is to what extent it can encroach in our life, it is already there. and it is increasing. In the coming times, the percentage will increase. And there is a fear one day we will be subsidiary to the AI. Means people are already afraid of AI is taking over human beings. According to me, it's a matter of time. But how much time it will take? It may take 50 years or it may take 100 years. I also have a fear in this regard. Someday, the AI will take over us.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? If from the participants, you may please ask. Participants, if you have any question, you may please ask, or if you want to unmute, you can write that in the chat box. Yes, sir, there's one question. Why is the literary critical pushback so lacking against transhumanism, etc.?
Actually, this situation is there in India to some extent. Otherwise, in the West, the Department of Digital Humanities has come out of English Literature Department only. If you look at the profile of digital humanities scholars, more than 70% of them have MA in English. So first they were trained in the traditional literary criticism, only then they moved towards the digital humanities. But in case of India, we are still living in the new criticism age, where we are not ready to go beyond the written text. So, but that is not the case everywhere. And even in India, it is not same everywhere. You may come across some professors who say, okay, theories are wrong and all that. We still want to see humanism and these things. But in most of the places, these things have become obsolete. And slowly they will become more obsolete.
Thank you,
I
sir.
don't think that literary critical theory does not talk about transhumanism. Actually, transhumanism and all that came out of literary theory.
If there's any other question, or else we can wind up the session. Participants, this session will also be available on YouTube, the recorded version. And okay, so I don't think there will be any other questions. Thank you so much for participating in large numbers. We will have paper presentations from 3:30 to 5:30 in various rooms. The links will be posted in the chat box, and fortunately, sir himself will be chairing one session from 3:30 to 5:30. And at 6 o'clock sharp, we have the concluding session for the day. I request all of you to also join for the concluding session after the paper presentations have been done. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining.
Thank you everybody for giving me a chance and listening to me, and let's keep meeting on other platforms in the coming time.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. You may please